Have you ever had this experience where you want to learn a song and go onto the internet, find the chords and lyrics, and then... Wait a minute, what's the strumming pattern? Well, many songs use the same patterns, so if you know the most common ones, it's pretty easy to figure out which one you're gonna need. So in today's video, we're gonna take a look at 6 essential strumming patterns that will help you play countless of songs. Now if you're at home and it sounds like this, then you're probably playing with what I call the robot arm. If you do your strumming by just moving your arm, it's gonna sound pretty awkward, and it looks kind of like a robot as well. If you just move your wrist, that's not gonna work either. What you want to do is move both your arm and wrist in kind of an elegant motion. And the reason why many people don't do this in the beginning is because in the beginning, playing the guitar is very difficult, so you're very tense. And if you're very tense, you're gonna play like a robot. So you need to loosen everything up and play with both your arm and wrist. And whenever you play a slow song, like in this strumming pattern, you really want to be careful not to make this mistake. Now that sounded okay, but not too good, did it? Well, it's because I waited until the very last moment to get to the next chord. Because many people think that on each and every single strum, you always need to press down a chord. And that's simply not true. What you want to do is, when you head to the next chord, you want to have at least one strum in there with all 6 open strings. So instead of doing this, you want to do this. You notice those open strings? This doesn't apply just for this pattern, it applies to almost all strumming patterns. Just remember, if the last strum is up, you want it to be on open strings. Do that and it's gonna make your guitar playing sound so much better. The most common strumming pattern in the world. If you have a song and you're not sure what to strum, this is the one you want to try out first. And if you're new to this pattern, this is how it should sound. Now, a common issue amongst beginners is this. The strumming has this huge pause and there's this big gap going to the next chord. Well, if this happens to you at home, most likely it's probably because you're doing this. Now, what am I doing wrong here? Well, one, I was looking at my right hand, and that's something you don't want to do. Don't look at your strumming, it's just going to confuse you. Look at your left hand at the chords. And the other was, I was thinking about each and every single individual strum. That's okay if you're gonna learn a new pattern, but if you want to play a song, that's something you really want to avoid. You see, your brain can only concentrate on one thing at a time. Now, if you don't believe that, try making a square with your right hand. Easy, right? Circle with the left hand. Anybody can do that. Now do both together at the same time. It's impossible. Well, it's equally as impossible for your mind while you play guitar to do down, down, up, up, the index, middle finger. You can't do that. So one of the two you need to do automatic. Now, since the strumming is the same thing over and over again anyway, that's the one you need to do without thinking. You need to think chords and feel the strumming. Much better. So remember, never think about every single individual strum and look at your left hand. Think chords, feel the strumming. here's a song that basically has the same strumming pattern, down, down, up, down, up, but it adds something extra. The second strum is a little bit slower. If you do that, it adds that Latin kind of a feel. You do want to make sure though to only use this effect when it suits the song.
Bones sinking like stones, all that we fall for.
Bones sinking like stone, all of us are done for. Now that might work at a party if your audience is drunk, but I wouldn't necessarily do that in public if I were you. Unless you're filming a tutorial. Straight beat patterns. Now what on earth is a straight beat pattern, you might ask? Well, you can play a rhythm in either swing time or straight. This is swing. This is straight. Same musical idea, but a totally different sound. And we're going to cover both a long and a short version, and here's the short one. Now whenever you have to play this pattern, and you're going to play this pattern a lot, it's very common, you want to have the third strum a little bit louder. And that's it. That's the pattern. Now if you at home have this, you can tell something's not quite right. Well, it wasn't the strumming. The strumming was pretty good. It was because on many of the basic chords, like this C for example, the low E string simply doesn't sound that good. So what I do, I mute it. My thumb is muting the low E string on all the chords, except for the last one, the E. Now notice also, I didn't do this. Mute, lift off. Mute again. Mute. Lift off. That would be way too much of a hassle, so rather than having to think about, okay, which one with or without, I'm just gonna mute everything, every chord. I don't think about it. Except only for when playing an E chord or E minor, that's the one where I'm gonna lift it off. It's the difference between playing like this same chords. Now that sounds so much better, doesn't it? Now mind you, this only applies for the basic chords, not the fancy chords or the bar chords. Then one last thing about this pattern. If you're gonna play this pattern, it's a very good chance you're gonna run into this pattern as well. A variation thereof. And it's because the two of those patterns really work together nicely. So in a pop song, typically you can have something like this. It's very common stuff, so make sure you're able to switch between the short and the long pattern in an instant. If you have a song and you just can't figure out what the strumming should be, it could be because the song is in 6/8. And that means there are 6 beats in one bar. And there are many songs like that. For instance, this one.
We are the champions, my friend.
Now let's take a closer look at the 6/8 pattern. Let's take the A minor. It's easier to practice with than the F. It's basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then you want to make sure the first strum is on the bottom strings and all the other strums are on the top strings. And now all you have to do is play an accent on the 4th beat. Bottom, accent. That's it. Now a very famous song is the House of the Rising Sun, uses the same pattern. And you can tell I move along just somewhat. You don't want to play like a statue unless you want to sound like one. It's very awkward. Immediately it sounds better when you move along. A 6/8 cannot be all tense. Well, you never want to play it tense anyway, but especially with the 6/8, you want to move along. It's just gonna sound much better if you do. If you have a song and you tried all previous patterns and still it doesn't work, well, it could be because the song has a reggae beat. And the good thing is, if you can play this next pattern that we're gonna cover, then you can play the strumming for lots and lots of reggae songs. Okay, let's take a look at this last one, reggae. We start with down, down, up. Then a hit on the strings. And I use my fingernails as well as the palm of my hand. So it's down, down, up, chuk. If you hear that chuk, then it's good. And also make sure not to hit the guitar itself. Stay on the strings. And lastly, down, up. So together it's... And then try to play it continuously. And then it's... And that's it. If you can play this pattern, then you know the strumming for thousands of songs. So now that we've covered all 6 patterns, we should be able to play most of the songs we're gonna run into. Let's put it to the test. Capo 2nd fret. Now, the chance that the song has a reggae beat or is in 6/8 is relatively small, so you just want to start with the most common pattern in the world. Here we go. On a dark desert highway, not the right one. If it's not the most common one, then you want to try out the straight beat patterns, both short and long. Let's start with the short one. Better. Let's try out the long one. That's it. Straight beat, long pattern. Easy. Let's do another one. Now remember, the first pattern we're gonna try is the most common one. When I find myself in times of trouble. Not quite. Second we're gonna try, straight beat. Start with the short. When I find myself in times of trouble. That's the one. And it's as easy as that. Now sure, you can run into a song with a strange, unique pattern, but for most of the pop songs, one of these 6 will definitely do. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed this video and I will see you next time.